All right, well, thank you for meeting with me. If you could just briefly just state your name and your occupation, that'd be great.
All right. My name is April DeMotts, and I am the property manager of Stonegate and Carlton Scott Apartments.
Okay, and could you briefly describe what your job requires of you?
Yeah, in my day-to-day job, I'm responsible for, I guess the majority of my responsibility is Stonegate and Carlton Scott, the full management of the properties and also overseeing the staff of both properties. And that includes leasing, it includes accounting, marketing, maintenance, all aspects of oversight of 2 apartment communities in Blacksburg. I work directly for a real estate investor managing his entire real estate portfolio. The majority of my time is spent on the apartment communities. So some of my jobs outside of just doing Stonegate and Carlton Scott, I have some farms that I also oversee and some other interesting assets here and there that we also work on, but they don't require as much time as the apartment communities do.
Okay, thank you.
That's a very, I guess, comprehensive term. To me, it's everything I do almost every single day. It's how I interact with my customers. It's how I interact with prospective customers. It's how my staff is trained to interact with customers. It's how our product looks to people that drive by or come by to view the property. So there's a whole lot of different things that go into real estate marketing. There's a whole lot of pieces to that puzzle. If any one piece is left out, then your puzzle is not complete. Okay, because I'm in Blacksburg, my primary, I guess my target audience is students almost exclusively. I view marketing as a cycle, so I have a 12-month period that starts in August and ends in August every year. So the first part of that cycle in August, after I get all my new students settled, I immediately have to begin with marketing to students for their next school year. And the first step of that process is determining my price. So part of what I do in order to determine and set my prices for the next school year is I do a comprehensive market analysis where I'm calling all of the competing properties that surround my property, determining what their rents are going to be, what kind of increases they're looking at, if they're doing any capital improvements on their properties that are going to affect their rent prices in the coming years. And I take all of that information and collect that to determine my price. That's the most important part of the cycle. That's where I start. Then after setting the price, I'm able to look at the demographics of my community. Have I experienced a trend in attracting one type of student over another? Am I attracting a lot of Greek students? Am I attracting a lot of band students? And if I know that I tend to get a certain population, then I'm going to do my best to target that population. I already have a lot of them here, so I'm going to target, say, the band and maybe direct mail members of the band at Virginia Tech and try to get more of them. I'm also going to start promoting my resident referral program, which is where my current residents are able to refer their friends or other people that they know that are looking for housing, and they get a bonus. And some of the other things that I promote during the lease-up process, and leasing up takes from August generally until February or March. I'm consistently promoting the location of the properties. Our customer service is very important to us. I'm always promoting a high level of maintenance service, a high level of management service, what they can expect in the office. So after we finish the lease-up cycle, then I start, I guess I'm continuing to market within my properties. That is something that I never stop doing. And by marketing within my properties, I'm talking about focusing on resident retention. So making sure that the residents that I have that are living here are happy and more likely to stay here the following year. I strongly believe that the smile doesn't stop once somebody signs a contract. So once they move in, I want them to expect the same level of service they got through the entire sales process. I've done a little bit of research into this just to look at from your class materials what the selling cycle is. And I think that this is something that I do. It's something I studied when I was a student at Virginia Tech, and it's something that I've incorporated into my year-round marketing model. Starting with prospecting, where do I find people? And again, that goes back to looking at community demographics. We also have open houses. Virginia Tech hosts housing fairs, and I also do some advertising and targeted media, things like apartment guides or apartment finders, some online advertising. And then once I get them in the door, I'm doing qualifying and a needs assessment on everybody that comes in. So I'm assessing how many bedrooms do they want, what's their price range, when do they need to move in, how many bathrooms are they looking for, various types of just basic needs in their housing. And then also talking to prospects about how we're going to qualify them. And I have a strict set of guidelines for what will qualify. And when you're dealing with mostly students, 9 times out of 10, I'm going to require a parent guarantor, which is going to be part of the qualifying process. We're going to then run a credit check on their parent guarantor, because a lot of students don't have income or assets to qualify by themselves. A big part of the process for me is the showing of the property. We do a personal tour. I take residents myself, and during that tour, I make sure to introduce them to my entire staff. So they'll meet me, and they'll meet anybody that's going to be in their apartment when they live here. So they'll meet the members of maintenance, any other staff members that they're going to see on a regular basis. During the showing process, I make sure to ask a lot of yes questions. So I'm asking things like, do you think your bed would fit in this room? Do you think that you have a dining room table that will fit in this space? A lot of questions that people are able to answer yes to. And I'm also using when you live here statements. So when you live here, you will be able to enjoy walking to campus if you like to do that. But just making sure that they understand that yes, this meets their needs, and when they live here, they're going to have a good experience. We don't have any negotiation. All of our contracts are the same, so they're all set pricing. There is no negotiating at all. And our close is then signing a lease with the prospect. And then the final step to the process is the follow-up and the servicing, which is the continuing smile after they move in. They continue to get the same high level of service that they got during the marketing process. My personal belief that the most important aspect is that the follow-up and servicing is the critical component. It's very easy to get a customer, but it's very hard to keep them. So I very strongly believe that the entire time I have somebody living here, and even when they're waiting to move in, that I need to be in constant contact with them, letting them know that I'm very excited for them to live here, how much they're going to like it. And then when they're here, I need to provide the same level of service that I promised them that I would give them in their initial walkthrough of the community and of the apartment. So I guess if I'm able to provide a pretty high level of service while they're here, I have a higher chance of retaining them, which means I need to attract less customers in the next selling cycle. And that's very important when you're in a cycle that is, or in a market that is dominated by a population that moves as frequently as students do. The more that I can retain, the less I'm spending on turnovers, the less I'm spending on marketing for the following cycle, and the less I'm spending on advertising and trying to attract new residents. Well, there are some of the real estate marketing laws that I know that I need to be familiar with, and not just be familiar with how they are today, but be familiar with how they change as different legislation is proposed annually. The ones that I think are most applicable to what I do are the Deceptive Trade Practices Act, the Equal Credit Opportunity Act, and the Fair Housing Law, with the Fair Housing Law being critically important. That is something that I take at least annual training in, and I do it actually, as part of the New River Valley Apartment Council, I'm on the board of that local association. We put together annually 2 fair housing seminars and 1 legal issues seminar, so we can stay abreast of all of the different type of laws that affect our industry. The fair housing law is just critically important to know inside and out. I think that something that's very important for somebody that's trying to get into the industry, or even a real estate marketing student, to consider is that there are many different niches in housing. So there's a lot of different areas that you can consider. People hear property manager and they just think apartment community, but it's so much more than that. I love student housing. I've also managed luxury housing, which just was not a suitable fit for my personality. There's also housing for older adults, senior housing or assisted living type facilities, nursing home facilities. And then when you're looking into real estate sales, you can specialize in many different kinds of sales as well. You can specialize in commercial. You can specialize in just single family residential. You can specialize in multifamily. So I think for somebody that's interested in getting into this as a career, they need to examine what it is, all the different niches that they could potentially work in, and identify what's going to suit their personality type best. And then maybe go out and do reverse interviews with people that are already practicing in those fields. So where they're meeting with me, say, for example, as a student property manager, they would come in and meet with me and ask me questions about what my day-to-day is like and what my job is like. So they would be able to then determine if my job type is something that would suit them.